All right. My name's Michael Zamora. Welcome to Hickory Street Podcast. I am doing a music review episode. Yeah. I've been listening to Spotify this week, and it suggested some really cool shit to me. So I've decided I'm just going to do a review on some of the new bands that I've been coming across. So I don't know how often I'll do this. Maybe it's just kind of contingent on what Spotify throws at me. But nonetheless, currently I am streaming this live on the Instagram account. I just have my phone going, so I don't know if I'll do that every podcast, just because I don't think it's really ideal. But maybe whenever I do the music reviews, I'll do that just because it's just me, so my phone can pick up the audio pretty easily since it's just me. So yeah, I've just been kind of hanging out Friday night, drinking a beer. Tyson hears something. Hey, I don't know what's going on. Maybe because he hears the headphones. I don't hear anybody outside. I think he's just kind of losing his shit right now for no reason. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to use some of the artwork for these bands. Now, I'm not going to actually play their music, just because YouTube, I'm not sure how their copyright stuff works, and even though these bands aren't necessarily huge bands that would probably even find the video, especially since I don't have many subscribers or followers and such, I'm just gonna play it safe and not play the music. I'll put the artwork in the video, and maybe a few pictures of the band members, just so if you want to go find them, you can. But the first band that I came across this week is a band called Violent Soho. Yeah. I listened to all their albums this week. They're just one of those bands that really caught my attention with their lyrics. For one, they had the first song I heard by them was a song off of their first album called Jesus Stole My Girlfriend. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I went ahead and checked out all their stuff, and one of the main reasons I kept checking out their other albums, because their first album was just self-titled, so it was just called Violent Soho, but Spotify kept recommending them to me. After I would finish listening to something else, it was throwing it back in my radio or whatever. So and it kind of makes sense because it's right up my alley. Just kind of stuff I would listen to. They're an emo band for sure, but they're I would say a more 90s styled emo band. I don't know how else to describe it besides heavy early pop punk influence. Think of bands like Promise Ring or like Dinosaur Jr., the lead singer's voice like really reminds me of the singer from Dinosaur Jr. I don't know his name. I'm just like I'm one of those guys that listens to so much crap that like kind of getting onto specific band members and memorizing their names is just very difficult for me because of how much music I listen to. But I'm sure there's someone out there who knows his name and is a huge fan of Dinosaur Jr. Because, I mean, realistically, they're probably the biggest influence in what sort of became like early pop punk emo bands, like I can definitely hear some of the stuff that Dinosaur Jr. was doing in like the late 80s that like very much mimicked bands like Promise Ring and Superchunk, and even though it's not like a direct correlation, I mean it's pretty similar. Like even like some of the things that I hear in Sam I Am, guitar-wise at least, is very similar to what Dinosaur Jr. did, with just like overwhelming amounts of feedback and just lots of noise. But like it's kind of hard to say in music like what someone is directly influenced by, but the lead singer's voice of this band very much so reminds me of the guy from Dinosaur Jr. So but music wise, they've got some complicated riffs, and I've actually heard a little bit of like Smashing Pumpkins in there. They got like their use of, how do I say this? Their use of clean tone guitars and their movements, at least throughout the song, musically sounds very similar to some things that Smashing Pumpkins did. One album in particular, which is the one I've listened to the most at least, is Hungry Ghost by Violent Soho. I really like the album artwork for this album as well, but this song has so many cool layers as far as guitar tracks go. I've listened to it, I guess, like 4 times now, and I think my favorite song on the album is probably Gold Coast. The first track on the album, Dope Calypso, that one's a good one too, but I think Gold Coast kind of takes the cake for me. I mean, it's got like comparatively not as many plays on Spotify, but there's just something about that song that is like, it's very big without necessarily trying too hard. They kind of let some of the space in the music speak for itself in that song. So, and the lyrics in general are pretty good. So anyways, yeah, so Violent Soho, that's a really good band. They're from Australia. Not sure what part of Australia. Let me find it. They're from. It just says Australia. Australian alternative rock. Suburb of Mansfield, Queensland. So that's where they're from. Anyways, so yeah, you should check out Violent Soho, especially if you like emo. Their album, my favorite album by them, Hungry Ghost, came out in 2013. So it's been out for quite a while. It's got 11 songs. It's 44 minutes, 10 seconds long. So not a terribly long or short album. I actually tend to like albums that are about 40 to 45 minutes, especially if they're kind of leaning more on the punk side of things, just because anything longer is kind of hard to listen to. And obviously with kind of more punk influenced albums, you can go shorter and it's not something you even really pay attention to. But yeah, so it's a good solid length. So now we're gonna move on to a band called Dyat. I actually discovered this band today. So just sometime, I think, like right after my lunch break at work. So anyways, Dyat, D-I-A-T. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it. They're from Berlin, Germany. And the album that I listened to is called Positive Energy. And I really, really dig this album because it's got a lot of dark nuance in their songs, but they've got an upbeat edge. Kind of in a similar vein as Joy Division, I would say. You know, as kind of dark lyrically as Joy Division was, they have some songs that have a very pop sounding edge to them. They've got like a bounciness to their music, and Dyat here has that as well in a lot of their songs. My favorite song off of this album, Positive Energy, is Nightmare. It's very it's very new wave sounding, and the guitars are layered very nicely. They've got a single note guitar playing over one of the verses, and it just really accents the entire song very well. So I don't know how they recorded it, but it sounds like a very low budget recording, if I'm being honest. It sounds like maybe they just kind of did it themselves, just kind of like the lo-fi way, you know. It's saturated with reverb, that's for sure, and I think their guitars have quite a bit of delay on some parts at least, but overall the album is solid. Like every song just kind of moves into the next one very smoothly, and you don't get bored, which it's kind of easy with this style of music to kind of be a little redundant with songwriting, I think, just because the elements that sort of make up this genre are sort of inescapable in some ways. I feel like certain bands, at least, kind of, they don't have much room for experimentation, but this band does it nicely. They've got some complicated movements between verses and choruses. They've got some interesting bridge parts, and I highly recommend it. The album Positive Energy came out. Hey, stop! No. The album Positive Energy came out in 2015, and it's got 8 songs. It's 28 minutes and 43 seconds, so it's a pretty short album. But nonetheless, definitely worth a listen to. And I checked out their Bandcamp page, because this band is small enough that they don't have anything on Wikipedia or anything. So, but they've got tons of people that have bought the album off of Bandcamp that you can see. It looks like they've got a few like vinyls that were pressed, but they're sold out. So it looks like they were supposedly touring in 2020 in April, so about a year ago. But I don't know how that really panned out with COVID, and I'm not seeing any updates. So hopefully this band is still together, because if they are, that would be better for all of us. So now this last band is actually a band I'm already familiar with, but they came out with a new they came out with a new album. The band is Shame, and they are from South London, England, and the first album that they put out, which I just absolutely adored, was Songs of Praise, and it was released in 2018. And I actually discovered this band, I want to say, like maybe only 2 or 3 months after their album was released. I just got lucky and came across it by accident. I think it was just kind of along the algorithm that I was, sort of sucked into on Spotify. So it just recommended it to me. And they came out with an album at the beginning of this year, so just a few months ago, and Spotify threw it my direction again, which was cool. The name of this album is Drunk Tank Pink, and I'm not exactly sure what that means, but the album's amazing, and it's very different from their first album. They've got so many different styles that they've incorporated, and I can't even tell you where they're drawing their influence from with this album. I really do think they're onto something fairly original here. Their first album had a very new wave edge to it, and this album's got a hint of that, but they've moved away from it a little bit, and I think that what they've done now is taken a more like pop mindset to songwriting, especially with the guitar work, the lyrics as well, the vocal melodies in particular are a little bit more. There's a little bit more. How do I say this? There's a little bit more depth lyrically. But the phrasing for the melody is very catchy despite its depth. which is why I'm like really excited about this album, just because it really does feel like they're onto something original here. They've got a little bit more cleaner sounding guitars than what was maybe on their first album for, I would say, the majority of their songs. And the singer he's kind of backed off the aggressiveness from their first album. And in the first album, he was very like punk, shouty, kind of like not really screaming, but at some point screaming, you know. With this album, he's reeled it in quite a bit, and he's very much more controlled vocally. And this is a fairly young band too. I want to say whenever their first album was released, they were all like, I don't know, like barely 18, 19 or something, like right out of whatever, you know, their high school age would be. But nonetheless, they're very solid, and my favorite song from the album is called March Day, and it's so catchy as far as music goes, but also it's kind of a complicated song. Like the music parts in particular, and the way that they're put together, especially with the guitar work, very cool stuff on that song in particular. Like, I'm very impressed that they've progressed from that first album about 3 years ago now to this. You can definitely tell they've put some time into it. So, Drunk Tank Pink by Shame. It's 11 songs, 41 minutes and 43 seconds. All these three albums are really amazing front to back. I don't have really any complaints. Every song works together. And if anybody who's listening to this knows me personally and we're friends, you know that I listen to albums front to back if I really enjoy them, and I'll listen to them over and over and over again. And I will say that this Shame album and the Violent Soho album are probably ones I'm gonna come back to consistently. I still find myself gravitating towards those, especially whenever I go to the gym, you know. So yeah, good workout music. So those are the three new bands / albums that I've been getting into, and Spotify keeps recommending good stuff to me this week. Hopefully continues on this weekend too. But thanks for checking this out. I don't know if you guys are enjoying this kind of format, but if you do enjoy the music review videos, you know, maybe I'll start to do them a little bit more often. But this is the first one, and honestly, I don't really care. I'm just having fun right now doing a podcast. So yeah, have a good night or day, depending on when you're watching this.